Too bruised to stand, she collapsed in the middle of a syndicate meeting, and the most feared crime boss in New Orleans was the first man to kneel. Mara Bennett had spent 2 years learning how to stay quiet, how to hide pain beneath silk, and how to survive a man who treated love like ownership. That night, beneath the cold lights of Mercer Tower, she was offered as payment for a debt she never made. But Silas Mercer did not look at her like property. He looked at the bruises, the fear in her eyes, and the way her body flinched before anyone touched her. Then his scarred hands changed the course of both their lives. Stay until the end, because this is not only a story about rescue. It is about the difference between protection and possession, fear and choice. Like the video and comment where you are watching from. 6 hours before Silas Mercer knelt on the marble floor and placed his scarred hand beneath her head, Mara Bennett stood in front of a cracked bathroom mirror and tried to make herself look less injured. Rain pressed against the apartment windows in silver sheets. Water ran down the glass so heavily that the New Orleans skyline had disappeared behind it, leaving only blurred lights and the black outline of cargo cranes along the Mississippi River. Mara tilted her chin toward the yellow light above the sink. The bruise beneath her left eye had darkened overnight. Purple spread across the delicate skin near her cheekbone, fading into a sick green at the edges. She touched a sponge to it and felt pain move through her face like a thin blade. The concealer did almost nothing. She added another layer. From the bedroom, Derek Sloan shouted into his phone, "I told you the money is coming." His voice struck the walls and returned sharper. Mara stopped moving. There was a pause, then the sound of something heavy hitting the floor. "Do not speak to me like I am one of your contractors," Derek said. "You tell Mercer I will be there tonight." Mara looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back had hollow cheeks, dry lips, and eyes that seemed older than the rest of her face. A crack in the mirror ran directly through her reflection, splitting one eye from the other. It felt accurate. She lowered the sponge and listened. Derek was pacing again. His footsteps moved from the bedroom to the living room, then back. 12 steps each way. Mara knew the number because she had counted them through hundreds of nights. When he walked that pattern, he was thinking. When he stopped, he was deciding whom to blame. The apartment was silent for 3 seconds. Then the bathroom door opened. Derek stood behind her in the mirror. He wore charcoal trousers and an unbuttoned white shirt. His blonde hair was damp from the rain, though he had not been outside in nearly an hour. Sweat shone along his forehead. A faint white residue clung to the edge of one nostril. His gaze moved over her face. "You made it worse." Mara set the sponge down. "It is swelling." "Then cover the swelling." "That is not how makeup works." The words escaped before she could stop them. Derek's expression changed. It was only a small shift. His mouth tightened. His eyes lost focus for half a second. Mara had learned to recognize that moment. It was the instant when a remark stopped being a remark and became permission in his mind. He moved closer. Her body reacted before thought could catch up. Her shoulders pulled inward. Her injured ribs tightened beneath the thin cotton robe. Derek noticed. He always noticed fear. A slow smile touched his mouth. "Careful," he said. Mara lowered her eyes. "Yes." He reached around her and picked up the makeup sponge. For a moment she thought he might help. Then he crushed it between his fingers and dropped it into the sink. "I need you presentable tonight." She watched brown liquid spread across the white porcelain. "Why?" Derek laughed softly. The sound was worse than shouting. "Because I said so." He turned and left the bathroom. Mara remained still until his footsteps crossed the bedroom. Only then did she release the breath trapped in her chest. Pain flared along her left side. She gripped the edge of the sink and waited for it to pass. 2 nights earlier, Derek had found her in his office with a flash drive in her hand. He had not asked what was on it. He already knew. Invoices, insurance certificates, altered port documents, payment records connected to companies that did not exist. 3 years of stolen money hidden beneath the polished surface of a riverfront casino project that had never been meant to succeed. Before Derek, Mara had worked in freight insurance compliance. She had spent her days reviewing claims from shipping companies, warehouses, and port contractors. She understood cargo numbers, arrival dates, inspection codes, and the small inconsistencies that revealed when someone had built a lie from paperwork. Derek had called that skill boring when they first met. Later, he called it useful, then dangerous. She had discovered the same steel shipment listed under 3 subcontractors. One invoice claimed the steel had arrived on a vessel that had never entered Louisiana waters. Another carried the digital signature from her old company account, though Mara had not worked there in 11 months. Derek had used her credentials. When she confronted him, he smiled. When she copied the files, he broke 2 of her ribs. The memory arrived in pieces, his hand around her wrist, the hard edge of the kitchen island against her back, the white flash of pain when his shoe struck her side, then his voice near her ear. "You should have stayed stupid." Mara had spent the next 48 hours moving carefully, breathing shallowly, and pretending the pain was manageable. Derek had refused to let her see a doctor. Doctors asked questions. Hospitals recorded names. Bruises became evidence once strangers wrote them down. In the bedroom, a closet door slammed. "Come here," Derek called. Mara closed the robe over her chest and walked out. Each step sent a dull pressure through her ribs. She kept her left arm close to her body, hoping he would not notice. The bedroom looked as though a storm had moved through it. Shirts lay across the bed. 2 suitcases were open on the floor. A lamp had been knocked sideways, its shade bent against the carpet. An emerald dress had been placed carefully in the center of the mattress. It was the only orderly object in the room. Mara looked at it. The silk was dark and glossy, the color of deep water at night. The straps were no wider than string. The back dipped low enough to expose most of her skin. Derek stood beside it, fastening silver cufflinks. "Wear that." Mara did not move. "It will not cover the bruises. It covers the important ones." She looked at him. His eyes stayed on the cufflink. "What is tonight?" Derek finally lifted his head. There was something almost cheerful in his face now. The panic had been pushed behind a new performance. She had seen him do it with bankers and investors. Fear entered one side of him and emerged as charm. A meeting with Silas Mercer. His hand stopped. Mara had only heard the name twice before. Both times Derek had been drunk. Silas Mercer controlled shipping contracts, private security firms, and more of the port of New Orleans than any public official would admit. Men in Derek's circle spoke of him carefully, usually after checking that the doors were closed. Derek resumed fastening the cufflink. "You know too much for someone who claims she does not listen. You shout." His gaze snapped toward her. Mara looked back at the dress. What does he want his money? How much? Derek's jaw tightened. 2.8. She thought she had misunderstood. Million, do not say it like that. How should I say it like it is temporary? Mara stared at him. Rain struck the windows behind them. Somewhere below, a car horn sounded and disappeared into the storm. The casino project is dead, she said. The project is delayed. The permits were forged. The permits were mishandled. The land is tied up in 3 lawsuits. Derek walked toward her. Mara did not step back. The bed stopped her. He stood close enough that she could smell peppermint gum cologne and the chemical bitterness beneath both. You are going to stand beside me tonight, he said. You are going to smile when I tell you to smile. If Mercer asks a question, you answer exactly what I tell you to answer. What am I supposed to say? That the insurance clearances are being corrected? They cannot be corrected. His hand came up. Mara's eyes closed. The strike did not come. Instead, he caught her chin and squeezed. You used to be more helpful. I used to believe you. His fingers tightened. Pain moved through her jaw and into the bruise beneath her eye. Derek leaned closer. You used to understand what we were building. You were building an exit. His nostrils flared. For both of us. No. For you." The silence between them hardened. Mara could feel his pulse in the fingers pressing into her face. Then, without warning, Derek released her. He turned away and smoothed the front of his shirt. "Put on the dress." Mara stared at his back. "What am I at this meeting?" Derek glanced toward the rain-streaked window. "You are reassurance." "For what?" "That I am still worth dealing with." She looked down at the emerald silk. A sick understanding opened inside her. "You are offering me to him." Derek gave a short laugh. "Do not be dramatic. What else would you call it? I am showing good faith. I am not yours to show." He turned so quickly that the movement pulled a gasp from her. Derek heard it. His eyes dropped to her ribs. For one terrible second, Mara thought he might strike the same place again. Instead, he smiled. "You live in my apartment. You eat food I pay for. You wear clothes I buy. Your name is attached to documents that could put you in federal prison. You forged those documents. Can you prove it?" Mara said nothing. His smile widened. "That is what I thought." He picked up the dress and held it against her body. The green silk covered the robe from her collarbone to her thighs. "Mercer appreciates expensive things. I am not worth $2.8 million. Derek studied her face. "To me you are." For the briefest instant the words sounded tender. Then he leaned close and whispered against her hair. "And tonight, that is all that matters." He dropped the dress into her arms and walked toward the bathroom. Mara stood beside the bed holding the silk. The fabric felt cold. She looked toward the open closet. Behind a row of Derek's jackets, a loose panel covered a narrow space inside the wall. Her emergency bag was hidden there. 2 shirts, jeans, $60, a copy of her birth certificate, an expired passport. The bag had been packed for 8 months. She had never reached the front door with it. Derek changed the security code every week. He kept her identification in the safe inside his office. Her phone had no active service. Her former co-workers believed she had moved to Europe after Derek sent messages from her account. The first time she tried to leave, he cried. The second time, he threatened to kill himself. The third time, he broke her wrist and told the emergency room she had fallen from a bicycle. After that, he stopped pretending the door was open. Mara carried the dress into the bathroom. She removed the robe slowly. Her body appeared beneath the bright light in sections of damage. Finger marks near her upper arms. A fading bruise across her hip. A thin scar below her ribs from a broken glass 2 winters earlier. The fresh swelling along her left side had turned dark purple. Every breath moved the skin over it. She touched the area with 2 fingers. Something shifted beneath the surface. Nausea rose into her throat. She pulled the dress over her head. The silk caught against her shoulder. Pain shot through her side and forced her to brace one hand against the wall. Outside, Derek knocked. "Move." "I am moving. Move faster." Mara forced her arms through the straps. The dress slid down her body and settled against the bruises with cool, merciless softness. It fit perfectly. Derek had always been careful about sizes. She looked at the woman in the mirror again. The emerald color made her skin appear paler. The bruise near her eye remained visible despite the makeup. She loosened her hair and let it fall across one side of her face. When she stepped into the bedroom, Derek was wearing his suit jacket. He looked her over slowly. "Better?" Mara reached for a pair of flat shoes. Derek stopped her. "The black heels. I cannot walk in them. You can. My hip is injured." His expression sharpened. "Whose fault is that?" Mara looked at him. Something cold and almost calm passed through her. "Yours." Derek crossed the room and slapped her. The blow turned her head. The sound was clean and flat. For a moment, neither of them moved. Mara tasted blood where her teeth cut the inside of her cheek. Derek flexed his hand as though she had injured him. "Do not make tonight harder than it already is." Mara slowly turned her face back toward him. She bent, picked up the heels, and put them on. They left the apartment at 7:12. The rain had weakened to a steady drizzle, but the streets still shone beneath the lamps. Water gathered along the curbs. Music drifted from a bar somewhere in the distance, a trumpet line stretched thin by weather and traffic. Derek drove a black sedan through the warehouse district. His hands gripped the wheel at 10 and 2. His posture was too straight. Every few minutes he touched the knot of his tie, then checked the rearview mirror as though someone might already be following them. Mara sat beside him with both hands folded in her lap. The seatbelt pressed against her ribs. She held it away from her body with 2 fingers. Outside the window, New Orleans moved past in wet fragments. Brick buildings with iron balconies. A woman closing a flower stall beneath a plastic cover. A boy in a restaurant uniform running through the rain. Couples sharing umbrellas. Ordinary people going somewhere because they had chosen to go there. Mara watched them until Derek spoke. If he asks about the permits, you tell him the city review board requested revisions. The review board never saw them. Mara, the signatures are fake. He struck the steering wheel with his palm. Not tonight. She looked at the side of his face. His skin had gone gray beneath the streetlights. You are afraid of him. Derek laughed once. I am cautious. You have not stopped shaking since noon. His hand moved from the wheel to her knee. His fingers closed hard. Pain spread through her bruised hip. You should be afraid too. I am. The answer seemed to satisfy him. He released her and returned his hand to the wheel. Mercer Tower appeared beyond the next intersection. It rose from the riverfront in black glass, 42 stories cutting into the low clouds. The upper floors disappeared behind mist. No company logo marked the building. Only a silver M was set into the stone above the entrance. Derek pulled into the underground garage. The security gate opened before he reached it. Mara noticed the cameras. One above the ramp, 2 at the elevator. Another hidden inside a smoked glass panel near the parking spaces. No guards approached. That absence made the building feel more dangerous. Derek parked near a private elevator. He shut off the engine but did not move. For several seconds, the sound of rain striking the concrete entrance filled the car. Then he reached into the center console, removed a small silver packet, and poured white powder onto the back of his hand. Mara watched him inhale it. He wiped his nose and checked his reflection. What have you told Mercer about me? Derek kept looking into the mirror. That you are loyal. I am not. That you are discreet. I copied your files. That you understand obedience. Mara turned toward him. Derek smiled at his own reflection. He does not need to know everything. They stepped out of the car. The elevator required no key. The doors opened as soon as Derek approached. Inside the walls were polished brass. Their reflections appeared distorted in every direction. Derek pressed the button for the 42nd floor. The elevator began to rise. Mara watched the numbers change above the doors. 12, 17, 23. Derek adjusted his tie. Look at the floor when we enter. She said nothing. Do not speak unless he speaks to you. 30. Do not embarrass me. 34. Mara felt the bones beneath her ribs grind when the elevator shifted. She drew in a shallow breath. Derek noticed. He grabbed her upper arm. His thumb pressed directly into one of the older bruises. Stand straight. I cannot breathe. You are breathing. Not well. His face moved close to hers. Silas Mercer owns half the judges in this city. He controls the port police. He makes people disappear from crowded rooms. If you fall apart in front of him, I will make certain you regret surviving the ride home. Mara looked at his reflection in the brass. Are we coming home? For the first time, Derek had no answer. The elevator passed the 38th floor. He released her arm and wiped his palm against his trousers. Mara remembered something he had said months earlier after too much bourbon. Silas Mercer never broke an agreement. Silas Mercer never forgave theft. Silas Mercer once shut down an entire dock because a foreman had struck a teenage worker. Derek had laughed when he told that story. Men like Mercer did not care about weakness, he said. They cared about ownership. Now, standing inside the elevator, Derek seemed less certain. The doors opened. Cold air swept over Mara's bare shoulders. The conference floor was silent. Dark carpet stretched toward a pair of glass doors. Beyond them, the Mississippi River shone beneath storm clouds, black and restless under the city lights. Derek placed his hand against the small of Mara's back and pushed her forward. The glass doors opened before they reached them. 12 men occupied the conference room. Most stood along the walls. Their clothes were simple, their faces unreadable. No one spoke. At the far end of a long walnut table sat Silas Mercer. He wore a black shirt with the sleeves folded to his forearms. Thick scars crossed his knuckles. A stack of shipping manifests rested beside one hand. Reading glasses sat low on his nose. He did not look like a man waiting to kill someone. He looked like a man interrupted while working. Derek stopped 10 feet from the table. "Mr. Mercer." Silas continued reading. Derek cleared his throat. "I appreciate you meeting with me." Silas turned one page. The sound of paper moved through the room. Derek began talking faster. "The city created complications, but the project remains viable. We need 30 days to restructure the financing and correct the permit issues." Silas removed his glasses. He folded them carefully and placed them beside the documents. "The money." Derek swallowed. "It is tied up. It was stolen." "No." Silas lifted his eyes. Derek's denial died in his throat. Mara felt the weight of Silas's attention move toward her. He looked first at her face, then her shoulder, then the hand she had pressed against her ribs. There was nothing warm in his expression. Nothing openly cruel either. He was measuring. Derek touched her back and pushed her one step forward. "I brought reassurance." Silas's gaze returned to him. "What kind?" Derek smiled. It was the smile he used for investors, polished and empty. "Mara is loyal, educated, discreet. She can remain here until the account is settled." The room changed. No one moved yet. Mara felt every man along the walls become more alert. Silas looked at her. "Did you agree to that?" Derek answered before she could. "She understands." Silas did not take his eyes from Mara. "I asked her." Mara opened her mouth. Pain tightened around her ribs. The room tilted slightly. Derek's fingers closed around her wrist. "Tell him." Mara tried to inhale. Nothing came. Silas's expression sharpened. "Mara." It was the first time he said her name. Her vision narrowed. The table blurred at the edges. She reached for the nearest chair, but her fingers found only air. Her knees folded beneath her. And somewhere beyond the white burst of pain, the scrape of Silas Mercer's chair cut across the silent room. The scrape of Silas Mercer's chair cut through the room. Mara never felt her knees strike the floor. One moment she was reaching for the back of a chair, trying to hold the room in place. The next cold marble slammed against her hip and sent a white flare through her ribs. Her cheek followed. The impact should have hurt more than it did. Instead, the pain seemed to move farther away, buried beneath the rushing sound inside her skull. Derek's fingers slipped from her wrist. "For God's sake," he hissed. "Get up." Mara tried to lift her head. Her body did not answer. The ceiling lights stretched into pale lines above her. Shadows moved around the edges of her vision. Shoes crossed the marble slow and heavy. Derek stepped closer. "I said get up." A hand slid beneath the back of Mara's skull before he could reach her. It was enormous. Warmth spread from the rough palm into her scalp, startling against the cold floor. Thick fingers curved beneath her neck without squeezing. The hand did not pull her or force her upright. It simply created a barrier between her head and the stone. Mara opened her eyes. Silas Mercer was kneeling beside her. Up close, he looked less polished than he had from across the conference table. A pale scar cut through one eyebrow. Another disappeared beneath the dark stubble along his jaw. His shoulders filled her vision, blocking the men behind him. He raised his other hand toward her face. Mara flinched. Her eyes closed. Her chin turned away. Her good arm lifted weakly, too slow to protect her. Silas stopped. He did not touch her. For one suspended second, his hand remained in the air, fingers open. Then he lowered it. "Can you feel your legs?" he asked. His voice was deep, but there was no impatience in it. Mara swallowed. Her mouth tasted of copper. "Yes." "Move your toes." She did. The small movement sent pain through her hip, but her feet responded. Silas glanced down. "Good. Keep still." Behind him, Derek gave a short, nervous laugh. "She does this." Silas did not look up. "What?" "She gets dramatic when she is under pressure." Mara heard fabric move as Derek stepped closer. Silas's expression did not change. "Take another step." Derek stopped. Silas's thumb rested near the pulse in Mara's neck, close enough to feel the frantic beat without pressing against it. "If you come within reach of her," Silas said, "Eli will break your legs before you touch the floor." The room remained silent. Mara could hear Derek breathing. "This is unnecessary," he said. Silas finally looked at him. His hand stayed beneath Mara's head. "Everything about you is unnecessary." Derek's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Silas turned toward one of the men standing near the door. "Call Naomi." The man reached for his phone. "Tell her possible rib fractures, concussion shock, and dehydration." Derek shifted his weight. "Mr. Mercer, the girl is fine. We are here to discuss the account." Silas's eyes moved back to Mara. She was trembling now. Not from cold. Something deeper had taken control of her muscles. "We are discussing it," he said. He slid one arm beneath her knees. Mara's breath caught. His second arm moved behind her back, stopping before it reached the swollen area along her ribs. He adjusted his grip with careful precision, finding a place where his forearm could support her without pressing against the injury. She felt his shirt against her cheek as he lifted her. There was no strain in the movement. The floor fell away. Mara's hand caught his shoulder out of instinct. Beneath the fabric, his body felt solid and unmoving. She smelled Rain cedar soap and the faint metallic trace of gun oil. "Where are you taking me?" she whispered. "To the next room." Derek stepped forward again. "What about me?" Silas turned toward him with Mara held against his chest. For the first time, something visible entered his expression. Not anger. Disgust. "You stay." Silas carried her toward a narrow door built into the wood paneling behind the conference table. Eli Shaw moved to block Derek's path. Derek looked from Eli to the other men along the walls. "Silas." Silas stopped with one hand on the door. Mara felt his chest rise beneath her arm. "Lock the room," he said. The door closed behind them. The space beyond looked nothing like the conference floor. Warm lamplight fell across crowded shelves and dark wood. Leather ledgers leaned against accounting binders. Old maps of the Mississippi River covered one wall marked with shipping routes and handwritten notes. The air smelled of paper dust and whiskey. Silas crossed the room and placed Mara on a brown leather sofa. He did not set her down gently. He set her down carefully, which felt different. His arms remained beneath her until her weight settled. Then he withdrew them and stood. Mara curled toward her injured side before the pain stopped her. Silas removed his jacket. She watched him, too tired to hide the fear in her face. He dropped the jacket over her legs. The dark wool held his warmth. Mara looked toward the closed door. What happens to Derek? Silas walked to a cabinet and removed a bottle of water. "That depends." "On what?" He twisted the cap free. "What the doctor finds." Mara let out a brittle laugh. "You need a doctor to tell you he did this, no?" Silas poured water into a glass and placed it on the table beside her. "I need a doctor to tell me whether moving you will kill you." He reached for the glass. Mara flinched again. Silas stopped. Their eyes met. He set the glass down within reach instead of handing it to her. Mara looked at it. The simple adjustment unsettled her. Derek would have seized her jaw and forced her to drink, then accused her of ingratitude for spilling. Silas stepped away. "You do not owe me obedience," he said. "But if you want to remain conscious, drink." She pushed herself upright using her right arm. Pain tore through her ribs. A sound escaped her before she could suppress it. Silas crossed the distance in one step. His hand moved behind her uninjured shoulder. He did not push until she nodded. Then his palm supported her back and guided her upright. Mara took the water. The glass shook against her teeth. She swallowed twice before nausea rolled through her stomach. Silas watched the movement of her throat. "How long since you ate, I do not know. That is not an answer. Yesterday. What a piece of toast." His jaw tightened. Before he could speak, the office door opened. A woman entered carrying a black medical case. She looked to be in her 40s with dark hair pulled into a low knot and a long raincoat still damp at the shoulders. Her gaze moved once around the room, taking in Silas, Mara, and the jacket over Mara's legs. "Everyone out," she said. Silas did not move. The woman looked at him. "That includes you." Mara's fingers tightened around the water glass. "No." Both of them turned toward her. The word had escaped too quickly. Mara lowered her gaze. The woman approached slowly. "My name is Naomi Reed. I am a physician." Mara glanced at the medical case. "Are you his doctor?" "Sometimes." Naomi removed her coat and placed it over a chair. "Tonight I am yours if you consent." The words settled strangely in the room. Mara looked at Silas. He stood near the desk with his arms at his sides, offering no instruction. Naomi crouched several feet from the sofa. "May I examine your face?" Mara hesitated. Then she nodded. Naomi put on gloves. Her touch was light and efficient. She checked Mara's pupils, the cut inside her mouth, and the swelling near her temple. "Any loss of consciousness before tonight? Number vomiting. Number blurred vision." "Only when I stood." Naomi's fingers moved toward Mara's ribs. Mara caught her wrist. The reaction was immediate. Naomi froze. Silas shifted behind her. Mara heard the leather of his shoes against the rug. "Do not," she said. She was not sure which of them she meant. Naomi kept her voice level. "I need to examine your left side. I will tell you before I touch you." Mara released her. Naomi waited until Mara's hand returned to her lap. "I am going to press near your lower ribs now." The pressure was barely there. Pain exploded beneath it. Mara folded forward with a gasp. Silas moved. Naomi lifted one hand without looking at him. "Stay where you are." Silas stopped. Naomi helped Mara breathe through the spasm. "In through your nose. Slowly. Do not force the left side." Mara tried. The first breath failed. The second entered in a shallow thread. Naomi looked at the emerald dress. "I need access to the injury." Mara's stomach tightened. "I can move it." She reached for the side seam. Her fingers shook against the silk. When she tried to pull the fabric upward, it dragged over her swollen hip and caught beneath her ribs. Pain blinded her. "Stop," Silas said. The word filled the room. Mara froze. Her heart hammered. Silas saw the fear in her face. His voice changed when he spoke again. "Do not move the dress." He went to the desk, opened a drawer, and removed a pair of heavy scissors. He placed them beside Naomi. "Cut it." Mara looked at him. "No." Naomi waited. Silas did not argue. Mara wrapped both arms across her chest. "I do not want everyone looking at me." Silas turned toward the window. His back faced the sofa. "No one will." He walked to the door and locked it. Then he stood with both hands resting on the window frame, his gaze fixed on the rain moving across the city. Naomi softened her voice. I will cover everything I am not examining. Mara looked at Silas's reflection in the glass. He did not turn. She nodded. The scissors slid beneath the side seam. The silk parted with a quiet, tearing sound. Naomi worked slowly, covering Mara with a medical sheet as the dress fell away from her ribs. Cool air touched her skin. Silas's shoulders became rigid. Mara wondered what he could see in the window. Then she realized the rain had turned the glass black. His reflection faced him, not her. Naomi examined the swelling. Her professionalism did not hide the change in her expression. There were older bruises beneath the fresh ones, faded marks along Mara's upper arms, a long scar across her lower abdomen, a dark mass spread over her hip. Naomi touched the ribcage carefully. Breathe in. Mara tried. Pain stopped the breath halfway. Again. The second attempt was worse. Naomi reached into her case and removed a portable ultrasound device. Silas remained at the window while cold gel spread across Mara's side. The small screen lit Naomi's face. Minutes passed. Mara listened to the rain. Finally, Naomi set the device down. 2 fractured ribs, the 7th and 8th on the left side. No visible damage to the lung. No internal bleeding. Silas spoke without turning. Her head, likely a mild concussion, and the hip, deep tissue trauma. No fracture. Naomi began wrapping the ribs. She is severely dehydrated, underweight, and running a low fever from inflammation. The compression around Mara's chest hurt at first. Then the unstable movement beneath her ribs eased. For the first time in 2 days, she drew a breath that did not feel like broken glass. Naomi secured the wrap. She looked at the layers of bruising again. This did not begin yesterday. Silas's hands tightened on the window frame. The wood gave a low creak. No, Mara said. Naomi met her eyes. How long Mara looked away. Almost 2 years. Silas turned. Whatever had been absent from his face before was gone now. He looked at Mara, then at the bruises visible above the sheet. His expression remained controlled, but control had become an effort. Naomi covered Mara fully and placed a clean shirt beside her. You can turn around after she is dressed. Silas faced the window again. Naomi helped Mara pull on the shirt. It was soft gray cotton, large enough to fall past her thighs. When Mara was covered, Naomi collected the ruined dress and placed it in a bag. Silas turned. His eyes did not move below Mara's face. Naomi packed several bottles of medication into a smaller pouch. 1 for inflammation, 1 for pain. Nothing with alcohol. She needs water, food, and sleep. Silas nodded. Naomi looked directly at him. She also needs control over what happens to her. Mara glanced between them. Silas's face hardened. She will have it. Naomi closed her case. Do not confuse giving orders with providing safety. The room became still. Eli would probably have lowered his eyes. Derek would have shouted. Silas only said noted. Naomi handed Mara a card. My number is written on the back. It does not go through him. Mara took it. Thank you. Naomi touched her shoulder lightly. You are welcome. At the door, she paused beside Silas. She should not be alone tonight. Silas looked toward the sofa. I know. Naomi left. The lock clicked behind her. Silas remained standing for several seconds. Then he walked to the desk and picked up the ruined emerald dress. He looked at it once. The silk hung from his hand like something dead. He dropped it into the wastebasket. Mara pulled his jacket more tightly around her legs. You bought that dress? He asked. No. Did you choose it? No. Silas looked toward the closed conference room door. What did you choose? The question caught her unprepared. Mara stared at the water glass. I chose to copy his files. Silas's attention sharpened. What files? She should have stayed silent. Derek had taught her that information was safer when buried. People could only take what they knew existed. but Derek was on the other side of the wall surrounded by armed men. The secret no longer protected her from him. Insurance records, she said, shipping invoices, permit applications, payment transfers, for the casino project and other projects. Where are they? I am not telling you. Silas studied her. Mara waited for the threat. It did not come. Good, he said. She frowned. What? Keep one thing he did not take from you. He walked toward the door. Mara's pulse quickened. Where are you going to finish the meeting? What happens if I leave you cannot walk? That is not what I asked. Silas rested his hand on the door handle. If you attempt to leave, no one will restrain you. Mara looked at the locked door. He followed her gaze. Then he unlocked it. The elevator is at the end of the corridor. He opened the door. Warm light from the conference room spilled into the archive. Derek sat in a chair near the table. Eli stood behind him. Derek's tie was gone. Sweat had soaked through his shirt. His hands rested flat on the table, watched closely by two men. When he saw Mara, relief crossed his face. There she is. Mara's body tightened. Silas stepped between them. Derek looked up at him. Mr. Mercer, I can explain. You have been explaining for 20 minutes. Silas returned to the head of the table. He placed a folder in front of Derek. Inside were copies of invoices Mara recognized. Her forged signature appeared at the bottom of each page. Derek stared at them. Silas sat. You did not lose $2.8 million. Derek swallowed. The project suffered setbacks. You moved $900,000 through a construction supplier that has no employees. Derek glanced toward Mara. Silas noticed. Look at me. Derek obeyed. You transferred another $600,000 to a gaming account in the Cayman Islands. Silas continued. You used Miss Bennett's credentials to approve insurance for cargo that never existed. She handled compliance. Mara felt the accusation like an old bruise. Silas turned one page. The digital access occurred after she left the company. Derek's breathing became louder. She gave me the passwords. Did she? Derek looked at Mara again. She was involved. Silas closed the folder. Your problem is not that you lie. He leaned back in his chair. Your problem is that you assume everyone else is stupid. Derek's composure cracked. I can get the money back. No, I need time. You had time. I have assets. You mortgaged them twice. Derek's hands curled against the table. Silas's gaze moved toward Mara. Then you brought her. Derek followed his eyes. A new calculation appeared behind his panic. Yes. Mara felt sick. Derek pushed his chair back slightly. She is educated. She understands the documents. She can work for you until the money is recovered. Silas said nothing. Derek mistook the silence for interest. She is loyal once she understands the rules. Give her somewhere to stay. She will not cause problems. Mara looked at him. There was no shame in his face, only desperation. Derek leaned forward. You wanted collateral. I brought collateral. Silas rested both hands on the table. The scars across his knuckles stood pale beneath the lights. I collect from the person who signs the debt. Derek's smile faded. Silas continued. Not his mother, not his children, not the woman he beats because he is too weak to face what he has done. Derek's face went white. I never said I beat her. You said she fell. She did. Silas looked toward the bruise around Mara's arm. That floor has fingers. No one in the room moved. Derek looked at Eli. Eli's face remained unreadable. Silas opened another folder. This is the original loan agreement. Your signature is on every page. He slid it across the table. Your debt is finished. Derek stared at him. Relief entered his face so quickly that Mara almost laughed. Finished? Yes. Derek exhaled. His shoulders dropped. Thank you. Silas closed the folder. You are not. The relief vanished. Derek looked toward the doors. Eli placed one hand on the back of his chair. "What does that mean?" Silas took off his watch and placed it beside the documents. "It means you will tell Eli where the remaining money went. I told you. You will give him every account, every password, and every name." Derek's lips trembled. And after that, Silas looked at him with the same tired expression he had worn while reading the manifests. After that, "You stop being my problem." Derek understood. The chair scraped as he tried to stand. Eli forced him back down with one hand. "No," Derek said. His voice rose. "No, we had an agreement. You broke it. I can fix this. You tried to pay me with a woman." Derek turned toward Mara. "Mara, tell him." She did not answer. His face twisted. "Tell him this is a misunderstanding." Mara looked at the man who had controlled every door, every meal, every dollar, and every breath she took inside his apartment. For the first time, he was the one asking her for permission to survive. She felt no triumph, only exhaustion. "You should have stayed stupid," she said. Derek went still. The words returned to him in her voice. Silas looked at Eli. "Take him." Derek began shouting before Eli pulled him from the chair. His shoes dragged across the floor. "Mara." She did not move. "Mara, look at me." The glass doors opened. Derek struggled harder. "You think he is saving you? He kills people. He will use you and throw you away." Silas's face remained motionless. Eli forced Derek into the corridor. His voice echoed until the doors closed behind him. Silence returned. Mara looked at Silas. "Is he dead?" "Not yet." "Will he be?" "Yes." The answer came without hesitation. Mara pressed her hand against the compression wrap. "You decided that for me." Silas rose. "No. You killed him because of what he did to me. I am killing him because he stole from me forged documents under your name and entered my building believing another human being could settle his debt." That sounds like a cleaner version of the same answer. Silas walked toward her. Mara's shoulders tightened. He stopped before the movement could become fear. "Do not make me into a hero," he said. "You will be disappointed." She held his gaze. "I did not ask you to be one." "Good." Silas picked up Naomi's medical pouch and placed it beside her. "Because I am not." Mara pushed herself to the edge of the sofa. "I am leaving." Silas did not object. She planted her feet on the floor. Her knees shook instantly. She stood anyway. Pain moved through her hip and up her spine. The room tilted. Silas remained where he was. Mara took one step. Her left leg failed. Silas caught her before she struck the floor. One hand closed around her upper arm, the other settling at her waist. The grip was firm, but it avoided every bruise Naomi had uncovered. Mara hated the relief that moved through her body. "Let go." Silas released her immediately. Without his support, she sagged against the sofa. "You said no one would stop me. No one did. You knew I could not walk." "Yes." She glared at him. "You are enjoying this." Silas's expression did not change. "I have better ways to spend an evening than watching you fight gravity." Mara lowered herself back onto the sofa. "What happens now? You stay here until Naomi says you can travel." "Here, upstairs." She looked toward the ceiling. "You live above the conference room, I work below my home. That is convenient. It is efficient." Mara gave a humorless laugh. "So I am your prisoner." "No. You control the elevator. You will have a key. You control the building. I control most buildings I enter. That is not reassuring. It was not meant to be." Silas crossed to the desk and wrote something on a sheet of paper. He placed it in front of her. The list was short. A private room. Medical care directed by Naomi. Access to a phone. Access to the residential elevator. No one entering without permission. Transportation and money once she was cleared to leave. Mara read it twice. "What do I owe you?" "Nothing." No one does this for nothing. Silas looked toward the door through which Derek had disappeared. Consider it the cost of removing a mess from my conference room. The answer was cold enough to believe. Strangely, it helped. Pity could disappear. Kindness could demand repayment. A rule was easier to understand. Silas held out a brass keycard. Mara looked at his hand, the same hand that had rested beneath her head on the marble floor. She took the card without touching his fingers. Silas stepped aside. The elevator is this way. Mara pushed herself upright again. This time he did not offer help until she swayed. His hand hovered beside her elbow. May I? The question stopped her. No one had asked before. Mara looked at his open palm. Then she nodded. Silas steadied her. They crossed the archive slowly. The conference room had been emptied. Derek's chair remained pulled away from the table. One of his cufflinks lay near the leg, a small silver square against the dark floor. Mara did not pick it up. Silas guided her into a private elevator. The doors closed. He removed his hand from her arm as soon as she was balanced. The car rose 2 floors. Mara watched their reflections in the polished steel. Silas stood several feet away, large enough to dominate the narrow space. Yet every part of him appeared deliberately contained. The doors opened into darkness. Silas turned on one lamp. The penthouse stretched across the top of the tower, all black stone glass and silent open space. The city shone beyond the windows. Rain moved over the Mississippi in silver bands. There were no photographs, no art, no shoes by the door or coat left over a chair. It did not look like a home. It looked like a place built for someone who expected to leave without warning. Silas led her down a long corridor. He opened a bedroom door and switched on the light. A wide bed stood beneath dark curtains. Clean towels waited inside an open bathroom. A sealed toothbrush lay beside the sink. A glass bottle of water sat on the nightstand. "This room is yours," he said. Mara stepped inside. She turned toward him. "Does the door lock?" "Yes." "From which side?" "Both." She looked at the handle. Silas placed the key card on the dresser. "No one enters without knocking, including you, including me." Mara studied his face. "What if I leave tonight? The elevator will take you to the lobby. What if I call the police? There is a phone beside the bed. What if I tell them Derek came here and never left Silas's eyes remained on hers? Then tell them the truth." Mara waited for a threat. None came. Silas stepped into the hallway. "Take the medication with food." "There is no food." "I will bring something." "I thought no one entered without permission." His hand rested on the doorframe. "Then I will knock." He walked away. Mara closed the door. She stared at the lock for several seconds before turning it. The click made her chest tighten. She unlocked it again, then locked it, then opened the door to make sure the handle still worked. The hallway was empty. Mara returned to the bed and sat carefully on the edge. Her body felt heavier with each passing second. The medicine pain and exhaustion pulled at her from different directions. She lay down without changing clothes. A few minutes later, someone knocked. 3 quiet taps. Mara's body went rigid. "Who is it, Silas?" She stared at the door. "What do you want to leave food outside?" Mara waited. No handle moved. No command followed. She crossed the room slowly and opened the door. A tray rested on the floor. Soup, bread, water, and the medication Naomi had prescribed. Silas was already halfway down the corridor. He did not look back. Mara ate several spoonfuls before exhaustion overcame hunger. She took the pills and turned off the lamp. Darkness filled the room. For a while, the silence felt peaceful. Then it became too complete. Derek's apartment had never been quiet. Pipes rattled. Traffic moved below. His footsteps crossed the floor at all hours. Here there was nothing. Mara closed her eyes. The conference room returned immediately. Derek shouting her name, Eli pulling him through the doors. Silas saying yes when she asked if Derek would die. She drifted into sleep and found herself back in the bathroom staring at the cracked mirror. Derek stood behind her. This time his face belonged to Silas. A hand closed around her throat. Mara screamed. She woke with pain tearing through her ribs. The room was dark. Her breath came too quickly. Light entered through a narrow opening at the door. Mara remembered locking it. She pushed herself upright. The door stood open an inch. Fear moved through her. She reached for the lamp. "Do not stand." Silas's voice came from the hallway. Mara froze. She turned on the light. Through the open door she saw him seated on the floor against the opposite wall. A folder rested on one raised knee. His reading glasses sat low on his nose. He was not looking at her. He turned a page. Mara pulled the blanket closer. "How did you open the door? You did not lock it." "I did. You unlocked it again before you slept." She remembered testing the handle. Her breathing slowed slightly. Silas continued reading. "You screamed when the door was closed." Mara looked at the untouched space between them. "How long have you been sitting there?" Silas turned another page. "Long enough." He remained outside the room beneath the hallway light while Mara lowered herself back onto the pillows. The door stayed open. No one crossed it. Morning entered the penthouse without warmth. Gray light pressed through the curtains and spread across the bedroom floor. Mara woke slowly, one hand resting over the compression wrap around her ribs. The door was still open. Across the hallway, Silas remained against the wall with the folder on his knee. His head had fallen back against the plaster. His eyes were closed. For the first time, Mara saw him without control arranged across his face. He looked tired, not the ordinary tiredness of a man who had missed sleep. This seemed older, built into the lines around his mouth and the tension in his shoulders. Mara moved carefully beneath the blanket. Silas opened his eyes at once. She froze. He removed his reading glasses. "How is the pain still there?" That was not the question. Mara considered him. Less sharp. Silas stood. His knees cracked softly in the quiet corridor. "There is food in the kitchen. I am not hungry." He looked at the untouched bowl beside her bed. "You ate 4 spoonfuls. You counted, 'I notice waste.'" Mara almost told him she was not one of his ledgers. Instead, she pushed the blanket aside and placed her feet on the floor. The room shifted. Silas moved forward, then stopped at the doorway. "May I come in?" The question felt strange after finding him outside all night. Mara nodded. He entered but did not approach the bed. She stood using the nightstand for support. Pain pulled through her hip. Her legs trembled. Silas held out one hand. He waited. Mara stared at the scars across his knuckles. Then she placed her fingers in his palm. His hand closed carefully, supporting without trapping. He guided her into the hallway. The penthouse looked different in daylight. Black stone reflected the river. Steel beams crossed the ceiling. The furniture stood in exact positions, each object chosen for use rather than comfort. Nothing was out of place. Nothing appeared loved. The kitchen occupied one end of the open living area. Silas had placed a plate at the center island. Steak eggs and cooked spinach sent up thin threads of steam. Mara looked at the food. "That is breakfast it is now. I cannot eat all of that." "Then eat what you can." She climbed onto a stool with difficulty. Silas remained close enough to catch her, but he did not touch her again. Mara picked up the fork. The first bite reached her stomach like heat entering an empty room. She took another, then another. Her body took control. She cut the meat too quickly and swallowed before chewing properly. "Slow down," Silas said. The fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Her shoulders pulled inward. "I am sorry." Silas's expression changed. He set his coffee on the counter and sat across from her. The movement made him less imposing, though not by much. "No one is taking the plate." Mara looked at the food. "I know. You do not eat like you know." Her fingers tightened around the fork. Derek had taken food from her when he was angry. Sometimes he emptied the refrigerator into the trash and told her hunger might improve her attitude. Silas pushed the plate 1 inch closer. "No one removes food from this table. Not from you." Mara looked up. His voice held no softness, only certainty. That helped more. She ate again, slowly this time. Silas drank his coffee in silence. When she finished half the plate, he handed her the medication Naomi had prescribed. He placed the pills beside the water rather than in her hand. Mara noticed. Over the next several days, she noticed other things. Silas knocked even when her door stood open. He told her when he was walking behind her. He left medicine where she could reach it. He asked whether she wanted the curtains opened before touching them. He replaced the lamp beside her bed because the first one required her to twist toward the injured side. None of these acts were discussed. They simply appeared. On the third morning, Mara found a brass key card beside her breakfast. "What is this residential access? To which rooms?" "All of them." She looked toward the elevator. Silas followed her gaze. "That too." Mara picked up the card. "What happens if I use it?" "The elevator moves. I mean if I leave." Silas cut into his eggs. "You leave." She waited for the rest. There was none. Later that afternoon, Mara tested it. She stepped into the private elevator and pressed the lobby button. The doors closed. Her pulse climbed as the car descended. She expected it to stop. She expected Silas's voice through a speaker. She expected the controls to go dark. The elevator reached the lobby. The doors opened. Rain moved beyond the glass entrance. People crossed the sidewalk beneath umbrellas. A taxi stopped near the curb. Mara remained inside. No guard approached. No one blocked her. After 30 seconds, the doors began to close. She pressed the button for the penthouse. When she returned, Silas was seated at the dining table reviewing documents. He did not look up. "Did it work?" "Yes." "Good. You knew I would test it. I hoped you would." Mara stood near the elevator, unsettled by the space he had left around her. Why Silas turned a page? Because locked doors lie. That evening, Naomi returned. She examined Mara's ribs and changed the compression wrap. The swelling had begun to recede, though the bruises remained dark. "You are healing," Naomi said. Mara glanced toward the living room where Silas stood near the windows. "He gave me a key." Naomi followed her gaze. "A key is useful. It feels like a test. Everything feels like a test when the consequences used to be pain." After the examination, Naomi found Silas in the kitchen. Mara remained close enough to hear them. "She needs choices," Naomi said. "She has choices. You choose the food, the schedule, the security, and the doctor. She cannot walk 3 blocks. That does not make her a child." Silas's jaw tightened. "I am keeping her alive. Then ask whether she wants eggs." Naomi collected her coat. "Medical safety is not the same as emotional safety." Silas said nothing. The next morning, Mara found 3 plates on the counter. Eggs, oatmeal, toast with fruit. Silas stood at the stove. "Choose." Mara looked at him. "Naomi spoke to you. She speaks to everyone. And people listen occasionally." Mara chose the oatmeal. Silas pushed the bowl toward her without comment. A week passed. Mara's strength returned in small increments. She could cross the living room without resting. She could shower without gripping the wall. She could breathe deeply if she moved slowly. The penthouse remained quiet, but no longer felt empty. She left books on the sofa, a glass near the window, Naomi's card beside the phone. Silas never moved them. One afternoon, Mara searched the library for something to read. The shelves in the archive room held novels on one side and shipping records on the other. She ran a finger across the spines until a loose binder slipped forward. It fell open at her feet. Mara bent carefully and picked it up. The page showed cargo insurance claims from a company called Vale Maritime Services. She read the first line, then the second. A vessel named St. Orleans had supposedly delivered machine parts to New Orleans on March 14th. Mara frowned. She remembered the name from Derek's files. The St. Orleans had left Louisiana waters on March 10th. She turned the page. Another claim listed a warehouse that had been condemned the previous year. The numbers were wrong. Not dramatically wrong. Carefully wrong. Someone had designed them to survive a casual inspection. Mara carried the binder into the living room. Eli stood near the elevator, speaking quietly into his phone. She waited until he finished. "Who reviews insurance claims for Mercer Shipping?" Eli looked at the binder. Why this company billed for cargo that arrived after the vessel departed? His expression remained flat. "You should rest. I am resting with paperwork." "Mara." She placed the binder on the table. "The warehouse on this claim does not exist." Eli glanced at the page. "Vale Maritime is controlled by Patrick Vale." "Who is Patrick Vale, one of Silas's lieutenants?" "Then one of Silas's lieutenants is stealing from him." The room went silent. Silas stood in the doorway behind her. Mara had not heard him enter. Eli lowered the phone. Silas walked to the table. "How do you know?" Mara pointed to the dates. "This ship cleared the port 4 days before the listed delivery. This policy number belongs to a different cargo class. The warehouse address was condemned after a fire." Silas looked at the records. Could it be an error? 3 errors can be stupidity. 27 is a system. He lifted his eyes. Something in his expression shifted. For the first time, he was not looking at her injuries. He was looking at her mind. Silas pulled out a chair. "Show me." Mara sat. For the next 2 hours, they reviewed the binder. She traced shell companies through claim numbers and duplicate invoices. Silas knew every dock foreman and trucking route. Mara knew how paper concealed movement. Together they found a pattern. Patrick Vale had been using Derek's casino project to route weapons through private warehouses without Silas's approval. Mara circled a company name. This one appears in Derek's files. Silas leaned over her shoulder. His body blocked the lamp. Mara went still. He noticed immediately and stepped back. "Sorry." The apology was quiet. Mara looked at him. Silas Mercer did not seem like a man who apologized often. She returned to the page. "This transfer is connected to the missing money." Silas sat across from her. "You stop shaking when you are angry at numbers." Mara stared at him. "That is not a normal sentence. Nothing in this house is normal." A smile touched her mouth before she could stop it. Silas saw it. His own expression did not change, but the tension around his eyes eased. The next day, Mara asked to walk in the rooftop garden. Silas agreed. Eli appeared 10 steps behind her as soon as she entered the corridor. Mara ignored him for several minutes. The garden occupied a sheltered terrace above the river. Rainwater clung to dark leaves. Jasmine grew along the walls, filling the humid air with sweetness. Mara stopped beside a stone bench. Eli stopped too. She turned. "Are you following me?" "I am walking." "At exactly my speed." "It is a convenient speed." Mara returned to the penthouse. Silas was in the archive with Patrick Vale's records spread across the desk. "You gave me a key and put a guard behind me." Silas looked up. "Eli is security. He is surveillance. There are men who would use you to reach me. I did not know I needed permission to look at flowers." "You do not." "Then call him off." "No." The word landed hard. Mara's chest tightened. Silas saw it, but his expression remained firm. "Patrick knows you identified the records. How he knows we are reviewing his accounts. That is not my question." Silas stood. "He has people in the building." Mara took 1 step back. Silas stopped moving. She hated that he noticed every flinch. "You do not get to call control protection because it sounds cleaner," she said. His eyes darkened. "I will not leave you unguarded, and I will not live with a shadow behind me." They faced each other across the desk. Silas was larger-armed and capable of ending the argument with one order. He did not. After a long silence, he reached for the phone. Eli. He waited. Visible distance. No closer than 20 feet unless she asks. He ended the call. Mara stared at him. You changed the order. I changed the distance. Why? Because you objected. The answer stayed with her. That night a storm rolled over the river. Wind struck the windows. The lights flickered once, then failed. Emergency lamps turned the penthouse red. Mara found Silas in the archive. He stood near an open drawer, holding an old photograph. A thin woman sat on a porch with 2 children. One was a dark-haired boy with solemn eyes. The other was a younger girl leaning against his shoulder. Silas started to put it away. Who are they? Mara asked. He remained still. My mother and sister. Mara looked at the boy. You? Yes. She waited. Thunder moved over the building. My father ran the organization before me, Silas said. He believed fear was the same as loyalty. Mara understood before he continued. He hurt them. Silas looked at the scars across his hands. I was 16 when I tried to stop him. What happened? He broke 3 fingers. Mara looked more closely. 2 knuckles on his right hand sat at different angles. And your mother. She left 6 months later. Your sister. A muscle moved in his jaw. She did not. The red light filled the silence. Mara stepped closer. Silas's shoulders tightened, though he did not retreat. She lifted her hand. May I? His gaze dropped to her fingers. After a long pause, he opened his palm. Mara placed her hand against it. His skin was rough and warm. Her fingers barely covered half of his palm. Silas looked at their hands rather than her face. I do not hurt women, he said. That is not the same as knowing how to care for one. No. His honesty made her chest ache. The power returned with a low mechanical hum. White light replaced the red. Neither of them moved immediately. 2 nights later, Silas came home after midnight. Mara was reading near the windows when the elevator opened. He stepped out with Eli. Blood darkened the side of his shirt. Mara rose too quickly. Pain pulled at her healing ribs. What happened? Nothing. That is blood. Still nothing. Silas crossed toward the archive. A drop struck the floor. Mara followed him. Sit down. He turned. The command seemed to surprise him. Mara pointed toward the sofa. Sit. Silas looked at Eli. Eli's mouth almost moved. Silas sat. Mara retrieved Naomi's medical kit from the cabinet. Her hands remained steady as she lifted the torn fabric. A knife wound ran along his side. It was shallow but long. She pressed gauze against it. Silas's abdomen tightened beneath her hand. You are afraid, Mara said. Not of the knife, of me seeing you bleed. He looked away. Mara understood then that his strength protected him and imprisoned him in equal measure. Naomi arrived 20 minutes later and stitched the wound. After she left, Silas remained on the sofa. Mara sat beside him. The distance between them was less than a foot. You should sleep, he said. So should you. I have work. You always have work. Silas looked at her. Mara felt the air change. His gaze moved to her mouth, then returned to her eyes. She leaned closer before fear could interrupt her. Silas did not move. Their faces stopped inches apart. His breath touched her cheek. Mara. The warning in her name was quiet. I know what I am doing. You are healing. I know. You depend on this house. Her chest tightened. I know. Silas raised one hand but did not touch her. I will not take gratitude and rename it desire. The words hurt more than she expected. Mara leaned back. Silas lowered his hand. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Then the elevator opened. Eli entered quickly. His face had lost its usual stillness. Silas stood. What happened? Patrick Vale left the docks before we could take him. Silas's expression hardened. Eli looked toward Mara. He accessed the residential security plans before he disappeared. Silas turned to her. For the first time since Mara had met him, fear moved openly across Silas's face. It lasted less than a second. Then the expression disappeared beneath something colder. Silas turned to Eli. "Shut down the residential elevators." Eli reached for his phone. "Lock the stairwells. No one enters or leaves without my approval." Mara stood beside the sofa, one hand resting over her healing ribs. "What does Patrick have?" "Floor plans," Silas said. "That is not what I asked." He looked at her. "He has the elevator controls, emergency exits, camera locations, and the security codes that were active before midnight. Can he get inside?" Eli glanced toward the windows. "We do not know that." Silas's jaw tightened. The penthouse changed around them. Metal moved inside the walls with a deep mechanical sound. Steel panels descended over the lower windows. Locks engaged throughout the corridor. Men emerged from the elevators carrying weapons beneath dark coats. The open space that had slowly begun to feel like a home became a fortress again. Silas took Mara by the elbow. She pulled away. His hand opened immediately. "Go to your room," he said. "No. Mara, I am not sitting in a bedroom while everyone decides what is happening around me. Patrick knows you found the records. That means I may know what he wants. It means he knows your name." Silas moved closer. Mara held her ground. "He will use you to reach me. You said that before. I was not wrong. No. You were controlling." His face hardened. "This is not a discussion." The words struck something old inside her. Derek had used the same tone before locking the apartment door. Mara stepped back. Silas saw the reaction. He looked as if he wanted to take the words out of the air and crush them in his hands. Instead, he spoke more quietly. "Please go to your room." The word "please" did not make the order harmless. Mara looked at Eli. "What happens if Patrick is already inside?" Eli answered before Silas could stop him. "We search every floor, and if he came for the records, we move you." Silas turned toward him. "Enough." Mara heard the answer beneath the interruption. They were not searching for Patrick alone. They were preparing to remove her. Silas guided her toward the hallway without touching her. "Take Naomi's medical bag. Your phone is on the nightstand." Mara walked into the bedroom. Silas remained outside. "Leave the door open," she said. He looked at her. "Open." Silas nodded. Mara crossed to the dresser and placed the phone in her pocket. A heavy click sounded behind her. The door swung shut. She turned. The handle would not move. For a moment she could not breathe. Mara pulled harder. The lock held. Her pulse struck the inside of her throat. Silas. No answer. She hit the door with her palm. Silas. Footsteps crossed the hallway. His voice came through the wood. "I am here. Open it." The security system sealed the residential rooms. "Then unseal mine. I cannot leave this door unsecured." Mara wrapped both hands around the handle. The room seemed to shrink. The windows were covered. The hallway was gone. Even the thin line of light beneath the door had disappeared. "I cannot stay in here. You are safer there." Derek's apartment returned around her. The locked door. The silent phone. His footsteps moving away while she begged him to let her out. Mara struck the wood again. "Open this door." Silas said nothing. Her breathing became fast and shallow. Pain pulled beneath her ribs. "You promised me." The words broke on the way out. Silas remained on the other side. "I know. You said I was not a prisoner. You are not. Then open the door." A pause. Mara closed her eyes. She heard the keypad outside. The lock disengaged. The door opened. Silas stood in the corridor with one hand against the frame. Armed men waited farther down the hall. He looked at Mara's face and saw the past written across it. "I will protect you," he said, "but I will not protect you by becoming him." Mara forced air into her lungs. Silas stepped aside. The doorway remained clear. Eli approached quickly. "We found a disabled camera on the service floor." Silas looked toward him. "We're near the maintenance elevator. Send 2 men. Already done." Mara moved into the hallway. Silas turned. "You still need to stay close. I will stay where I can see the door." He accepted that. They returned to the archive. Maps and security diagrams covered the desk. Eli marked access points while Silas spoke to men throughout the building. Mara stood over Patrick's shipping records. Something in the pattern bothered her. She read the company names again. Vale Maritime, Sloan River Development, Pelican Storage. The same addresses appeared on the false insurance claims. Patrick had used Derek's project to move unauthorized weapons. Derek had copied the transactions onto the encrypted drive. Mara felt cold. He is not coming here to kill Silas. The room went quiet. Silas ended his phone call. "What did you say Patrick wants the drive?" Eli looked at the files. What drive Mara did not answer immediately. Silas watched her face. "The records you copied." She nodded. "Where are they in a storage locker near the casino site?" Silas stared at her. "You told me you kept copies. You did not tell me they were still in the city. You did not ask where. Do not play with words." Mara's fear sharpened into anger. "I kept one secret because it was the only thing Derek never managed to take from me." Silas stepped closer, then forced himself to stop. "Patrick knows about it. He knew Derek copied the accounts. He may believe Derek told me where they are." Eli studied the map. "If Patrick cannot reach the penthouse, he may move on the locker." "He already has," Mara said. Silas looked at her. "How do you know?" "Because the disabled camera is not an entry point. It is a distraction." She pointed to the service floor. "Patrick wants you searching the building while he gets to the evidence." Silas looked at Eli. "Send a team to Pelican Storage." Mara shook her head. "They will not find it. Why the unit is registered under a false name. The drive is not inside the locker." Silas's eyes narrowed. "Where is it I can show you?" "No." Mara folded her arms. "You do not know what you are looking for. You can describe it. It is hidden inside an electrical box behind a false wall. Draw it. The building has 3 identical corridors and no working numbers." Silas's voice lowered. "You are not going. Then Patrick gets there first. I will burn every file in this city before I put you near him. This is not only your evidence." Silas's eyes darkened. Mara stepped closer. "My name is on those documents. My credentials. My life. Derek built his escape through me. I am not staying behind while another man decides what happens to the proof." Eli looked away, giving Silas the privacy of the argument without leaving the room. Silas placed both hands on the desk. "You are still recovering. I can walk. Barely. I can think. That is not in question. Then stop treating me like my injuries removed my right to choose." Silas looked at the security map. The muscles in his forearms tightened. Finally, he turned to Eli. "Bring the armored vehicle." Mara released the breath she had been holding. Silas pointed toward her. "You remain beside me. I decide where I stand. Beside me." She held his gaze. "Close enough to hear me object. That will not be difficult." They left through a private service elevator beneath the parking garage. Rain had begun again. It fell hard against the armored vehicle, turning the city into streaks of red lights and wet pavement. Eli drove. Silas sat beside Mara in the back. He wore a dark coat over a shoulder holster. A second weapon rested beneath the seat. His body remained angled toward her, placing himself between Mara and the window. Neither of them spoke. The vehicle moved through the warehouse district, past closed restaurants and brick buildings shining beneath street lamps. Mara watched familiar streets pass. She had driven them with Derek countless times. Everything looked different from the back seat of Silas's car. Not safer, simply honest about the danger. Silas checked the magazine in his weapon. Mara looked at his hands. "You were going to send me away." His fingers stopped. "This is not the time." "That means yes." Silas returned the weapon to its holster. "If Patrick has your name, you cannot remain in the penthouse. You said no one could get inside. He does not need to enter the building to reach you." Mara looked toward the rain. "So you decide where I go. I make certain you survive long enough to hate me for it." "That is still deciding." Silas leaned back. The city lights moved across his face. "I do not know how to protect something without controlling the space around it. I am not something." His eyes met hers. "I know." The answer was quiet enough to hurt. Pelican Storage stood beside an abandoned riverfront casino. The old building had been stripped to concrete and rusted steel. Torn construction plastic snapped in the wind. Water covered the parking lot in shallow black pools. Eli stopped near a side entrance. 3 Mercer vehicles arrived behind them. Men moved into position. Silas opened his door. Mara caught his sleeve. He looked back. "Do not leave me locked in the car. I was not going to. Do not lie to calm me. I do not know how." That was almost true. They crossed the parking lot. Rain soaked Mara's hair and ran beneath the collar of her coat. Her hip ached with each step, but she kept moving. Inside the storage building smelled of mold, wet concrete, and old electrical wires. Emergency lights glowed along the corridor. Mara led them past rows of metal doors. "This way." Silas stayed at her shoulder. Eli and the others spread behind them. They reached a corridor with 3 identical turns. Mara chose the second. At the end stood a rusted electrical box. She crouched slowly. Silas moved to help. "I have it." He stopped. Mara pressed 2 fingers beneath the loose metal edge and pulled. The cover opened. Behind the dead switches was a narrow gap in the wall. She reached inside. Her fingertips found plastic. A small black drive came free. Silas looked at it. "That contains everything. Enough." A light went out behind them. Eli turned. Movement. Gunfire cracked through the corridor. Silas threw Mara to the floor and covered her with his body. The first bullet struck the wall above them. Concrete dust filled the air. Mercer's men returned fire. Mara pressed her face against the wet floor. Silas's weight shielded her ribs without crushing them. One arm covered her head while the other held his weapon. "Stay down." The words vibrated against her ear. More shots struck the storage doors. Eli shouted from the corner, "They are moving through the West Hall." Silas fired twice. Someone fell out of sight. Mara looked toward the ceiling. Red pipes ran above the corridor. The fire system. She remembered the building plans from Derek's files. The control valve was inside the next unit. Silas. Not now. The suppression system. What if I open the valve, the loading doors unlock? Silas looked down at her. "Where Unit 12? It is across the corridor." "I know." "No." Mara reached into his coat and removed the spare magazine. Silas caught her wrist. "What are you doing?" "Giving you a reason to move." She pushed the magazine into his hand. Then she crawled toward the nearest storage door. Silas cursed and followed. Eli covered them. Mara reached Unit 12 and pulled the emergency release. The door lifted 6 inches. She slid beneath it. Silas came through behind her. Inside, old furniture crowded the darkness. Mara found the red control wheel on the wall. She turned it. Nothing happened. Silas covered the entrance. Again. Mara placed both hands on the wheel and forced it. Pain pulled through her ribs. The valve broke loose. Water exploded from the ceiling. Alarms began screaming. Across the building, metal loading doors lifted automatically. White security lights flooded the corridors. Patrick's men lost their cover. Eli's team moved. The gunfire ended quickly. Silas turned toward Mara. Water ran down his face. You disobeyed me. You followed. That is not an answer. It is the one you have." A figure moved behind the stacked furniture. Silas raised his weapon. Patrick Vale stepped from the shadows with a gun pressed beneath Mara's jaw. His other arm closed around her chest. Silas froze. Patrick was lean, gray-haired, and dressed in a soaked business suit. Blood ran from his temple. "Put it down," Patrick said. Silas did not move. The weapon pressed harder against Mara's skin. "Silas." Silas lowered his gun. Patrick smiled. "There he is." The great Silas Mercer brought to his knees by a bruised little accountant. Mara felt Patrick's breath against her hair. He tightened his arm. Pain moved through her healing ribs. "You see it now, don't you?" he whispered. "The penthouse, the food, the keys. Same prison. Better furniture." Mara looked at Silas. His hands were open at his sides. He was waiting, not controlling, waiting for her. Patrick shifted his grip. His fingers pressed into the same bruise Derek had left on her arm. Fear rose. Then anger followed it. Mara reached into her pocket. Her fingers closed around the broken brass key from the electrical box. She drove it backward into Patrick's hand. He shouted. The gun moved away from her jaw. Mara dropped. Silas crossed the space before Patrick could recover. He struck Patrick once. The man hit the floor. Silas placed his weapon against Patrick's chest. Mara pushed herself upright. "Wait." Silas stopped. Patrick stared up at him, breathing hard. Mara removed the prepaid phone from her pocket and started recording. She crouched several feet away. "Tell me where the stolen accounts are." Patrick laughed through blood. Silas pressed the weapon harder. Patrick's smile disappeared. Mara asked again. "The accounts." Patrick looked at her. "You think he will let you keep your freedom? That is not the question." For 10 minutes, Patrick gave them names, banks, storage routes, and the location of the remaining money. Mara recorded every word. When she finished, she stood. Silas looked at her. She handed the phone to Eli. Then she walked out of the unit. Silas followed several minutes later. There was no blood on his hands. Mara did not ask where Patrick had gone. By dawn, the penthouse windows were open again. The steel panels had lifted. New Orleans appeared washed clean beneath the early light. Mara sat at the dining table wearing dry clothes. The drive rested beside Naomi's medical bag. Silas entered carrying a thick white envelope. He placed it in front of her. "There is $15,000 inside." Mara looked at it. A new identification package, a prepaid phone, an apartment in Denver paid for 6 months. She did not touch the envelope. Silas continued. "There is a train leaving tomorrow afternoon. You chose Denver. It is outside Patrick's network. You chose the apartment. It has security. You chose the train. I chose the safest route." Mara stood. "You are still making my choices." Silas's face remained controlled. "I am keeping you alive. You are sending me away because you are afraid." His eyes met hers. "Yes." The honesty stopped her. Silas looked toward the river. "You are the first weakness my enemies can see. I am not your weakness. You are the first person whose death would destroy my judgment." The room became silent. Mara looked at the envelope. Silas stepped back. "No one will stop you. The elevator is open. Eli will take you to the station. And if I refuse, I will not force you into the car. Will you ask me to stay?" Silas's jaw tightened. "No." "Why?" "Because you are still learning what freedom feels like. I will not use what you feel for this house to keep you in it." Mara picked up the envelope. It felt heavy. The next afternoon, she packed the clothes Silas had bought her. She placed Naomi's card in her pocket. Silas did not come to the bedroom. He did not stand beside the elevator. He gave her the exit he had promised. Eli waited in the lobby beside a black car. Outside, sunlight covered the wet streets. People crossed the sidewalk. A train horn sounded somewhere beyond the buildings. Mara stepped through the glass doors. No one followed. She walked toward the car. 1 step, 2, 3. Then she stopped. The envelope rested beneath her arm. The city stood open around her. For the first time in 2 years, no man controlled the direction of her next step. Mara turned. She walked back into Mercer Tower. Eli did not call after her. The private elevator carried her to the penthouse. Silas stood beside the windows with his back to the room. He did not turn when the doors opened. Mara crossed the floor and placed the train ticket on the table. I walked out. Silas remained still. I know. No one stopped me. I gave the order. I came back. Now he turned. The control in his face had cracked. Why Mara looked at the open elevator behind her. Because I needed to know whether I was staying because the door was locked. Silas's gaze moved toward the ticket. And it wasn't. Rain began tapping softly against the windows. Silas stepped closer, stopping before the space between them disappeared. If you stay, I cannot promise you a peaceful life. Mara held his eyes. I am not asking for peace. Her hand rested beside the ticket. I am asking for the truth. The words remained between them while rain gathered against the windows. Silas stood several feet away, broad shoulders held rigid beneath his dark shirt. The train ticket lay on the table beside Mara's hand. Beyond the glass, the Mississippi moved through the city like a strip of black steel. Silas looked at the open elevator. Then he looked at her. The truth is not safe. I know. No, you know pieces. His voice had returned to the low, controlled tone he used during meetings, but Mara could hear the strain beneath it. Silas walked toward the windows. My enemies know I removed Patrick Vale. They know Derek Sloan disappeared after entering my building. Some will assume you helped me. Others will assume you are valuable simply because I allowed you to remain here. Mara watched his reflection in the glass. What will they do? Watch you. And after that, they will look for patterns. Where you go. Who speaks to you. Which doors open when you approach. Silas rested his hands against the window frame. If they decide you matter to me, they will threaten you. If threats fail, they will try to take you. Mara felt fear enter her slowly. It was not the blind fear Derek had cultivated. This fear had a name, a shape, and a reason. She could examine it. And what will you do? Silas's eyes met hers in the reflection. Everything required to bring you back. That is not comforting. It was not intended to be. Mara left the ticket on the table and stepped closer. What else? Silas turned. There will be nights when I cannot tell you where I am going. Because you do not trust me. Because knowledge creates responsibility. I already have responsibility. You have evidence against dead men. I helped expose Patrick, and that placed a weapon beneath your jaw. Mara touched the spot where the gun had pressed against her skin. I survived. Silas's expression hardened. Survival is not proof that the risk was acceptable. Then tell me the acceptable risk. There is none. The answer came too quickly. Mara understood what he meant. Silas did not want her to choose carefully. He wanted danger to make the choice for her. She crossed the last few feet between them. You keep asking me to leave because you think fear is more honest than desire. His jaw tightened. Fear keeps people alive. Fear kept me in Derek's apartment. Silas looked away. Mara reached for the train ticket, folded it once, and placed it inside his shirt pocket. His body became still beneath her fingers. I walked through the lobby, she said. I stood outside. I saw the street, the car, and the open city. I could have left. You still can. I know. That matters. It matters to me, too. Silas lowered his gaze to her face. Mara could feel the heat of him, though he made no move to touch her. If I stay, she said. "I do not become another object in your territory." His eyes darkened. "You think that is what I want? I think possession is the only language you trust." Silas said nothing. Mara continued. "I keep my own money. I keep my key. I decide where I work and when I leave this building." His expression remained unreadable. "You tell me when a threat concerns me directly. You do not hide danger behind the word protection." "Mara." "I am not finished." Silas's mouth closed. The fact that he allowed the interruption gave her courage. "You knock before entering my room. You do not assign someone to follow me without telling me. You do not kill anyone in my name and then call it necessary without looking me in the eye." Silas's voice lowered. "You cannot ask me to promise that no one will die." I did not. "What are you asking, honesty?" She held his gaze. "And if staying here begins to erase the person I am trying to rebuild, I leave." Something changed in his face. Not anger. Pain. Silas stepped back as though the final condition had struck him physically. "You would leave, if I had to." His eyes moved toward the elevator. Mara saw the old instinct rise inside him. Close the doors. Control the risk. Remove the possibility of loss. His right hand formed a fist. Then slowly, deliberately, he opened it. "I could give you everything in this building," he said. "Money, protection, a position no one would question. I do not want a position no one can question. What do you want?" "The right to question you." Silas stared at her. Rain moved in thin streams down the glass behind him. A low sound left his chest. It might have been a laugh, though no humor reached his face. "You choose difficult things. I chose you." His breathing changed. Mara saw it in the rise of his shoulders. Silas looked down at his open hands. They seemed even larger beneath the soft light. Old scars crossed the fingers. 2 knuckles sat at the wrong angle. A pale line ran from the base of his thumb toward his wrist. "I know how to close my hand around something," he said. "I know how to keep men from taking what belongs to me." Mara's pulse quickened at the word belongs. Silas looked at her again. "I do not know how to hold something that is allowed to leave." "Then do not hold me that way." His voice became rough. "How?" "Ask me tomorrow." His brow furrowed. Mara stepped closer. "Ask me tomorrow if I still choose you." Silas searched her face. "And the day after that, ask again." His eyes closed. For several seconds he stood motionless, as if allowing himself to feel the full weight of an answer he could not command. When he opened his eyes, the hard control had thinned. "I need you to choose me tomorrow," he said. Mara nodded. "Then let me." Silas lifted one hand. He stopped before touching her. The pause was familiar now. It had begun in the conference room, when she flinched from a hand that had never struck her. Since then, the space before contact had become a language between them. Mara placed her fingers against his palm. His skin was warm and rough. The first time Silas had held her, she had been unconscious on a cold floor. She had possessed no strength, no balance, and no choice. Now he waited. Mara guided his hand toward her face. His palm settled against her cheek. The size of it should have frightened her. His fingers reached from her jaw to her temple. One careless movement could have become pain. Silas did not move carelessly. His thumb traced the place where the bruise beneath her eye had faded. "Tell me to stop," he said. His voice was barely above a whisper. Mara lifted her chin. "I will tell you when to start." She rose onto her toes and kissed him. Silas remained completely still. For one heartbeat, Mara thought he might pull away again. Then her hand closed around the front of his shirt. She felt the restraint inside him break by a single careful degree. His second hand settled at her waist. It did not tighten. It remained there warm and steady, waiting for permission even after her mouth had given it. Mara leaned closer. Silas exhaled against her lips. The sound carried weeks of tension, fear, and sleepless control. His mouth moved over hers slowly. There was nothing polished about the kiss. It felt like the man himself. Careful because he knew exactly how much strength he carried. Rough because tenderness did not come naturally to him. Mara touched the side of his neck. His pulse hammered beneath her fingers. She drew back just enough to breathe. "You are nervous." Silas rested his forehead against hers. "You are more dangerous than the men downstairs, because I came back, because I can order them to leave." Mara almost smiled. "And me?" His hand moved slightly at her waist. "I can only ask, then ask." Silas looked at her. "Stay tonight." "Yes." "Stay tomorrow. Ask me tomorrow." A shadow of frustration crossed his face. Mara smiled fully this time. Silas stared at the expression as though he had discovered something rare. Then he kissed her again. The second kiss held less distance. Mara pressed both hands to his chest. Beneath her palms, his heart moved faster than the calm rhythm she remembered from the conference room. Silas lifted her slightly, then stopped when she tensed. His hands opened. Mara looked down at them. "I am not hurt. You were. I am healing. That is not the same." She placed one of his hands over her ribs. The fractures had closed, though the skin remained tender. "Can you feel me breathing?" "Yes." "Then believe me when I say I can breathe." Silas's fingers spread across her side. Mara inhaled deeply. No broken bone shifted. No white pain stole the air. Silas watched her chest rise beneath his hand. Something inside his face softened. He lowered his head and pressed his mouth to her forehead. They remained beside the windows while the rain moved across the city. For once, Silas did not reach for the phone when it rang in the archive. He let someone else answer. 3 weeks later, Mara sat at the long walnut table where she had collapsed. The room no longer felt as large. Perhaps the walls had not changed. Perhaps she had. Shipping records covered the table. Eli occupied the seat to her right, reviewing a list of warehouse managers. Naomi stood near the coffee service with her arms folded. Silas sat at the head of the table. Patrick Vale's operation had extended farther than they first believed. He had used Derek's shell companies to move weapons, hide money, and intimidate smaller contractors into silence. Mara had spent days rebuilding the transactions. She circled one name. This foreman reported 3 missing containers. Eli glanced at the page. He withdrew the report. 2 days after Patrick's men visited his home, Silas leaned back. "What do you recommend?" It was the first time he had asked the question in front of his senior people. Several men along the wall looked at Mara. She felt their suspicion. She also felt Silas waiting, not answering for her. "Bring the foreman here," Mara said. "Not as a prisoner. Offer protection to his family and payment for the stolen cargo. Then let him decide whether he wants to testify." One of the older men near the window spoke. "We do not bring civilians into internal disputes." Mara turned toward him. Patrick brought the dispute to his home. The man looked at Silas. Silas did not rescue either of them from the disagreement. "The witness will be protected," Mara continued. "Anyone who threatens a family member to collect a business debt loses access to Mercer docks." A murmur passed through the room. The older man frowned. "That has never been the rule." "It is now," Silas said. The room became silent. Mara looked toward him. Silas's expression remained calm, but she saw the decision beneath it. Later, after the others left, Mara gathered the records. "You changed the rule quickly." Silas closed the last folder. It was a bad rule. There was no rule. That was the problem. Mara studied him. "Did you agree because I said it no?" The answer pleased her more than agreement would have. "Why then?" "Because you were right." She moved around the table. Silas reached for her, then paused. Mara took his hand and placed it at her waist. He had not stopped asking. Sometimes the question was spoken. Sometimes it existed only in the stillness of his fingers before they touched her. Mara never answered automatically. That mattered to both of them. Her work expanded beyond Patrick's accounts. Silas established an independent compliance office inside one of his legitimate shipping companies. Mara controlled the records and reported directly to him, but the bank account carrying her salary belonged only to her. She hired 2 analysts from her former industry. She created a confidential process for workers who had been threatened by supervisors or contractors. Within a month, 3 managers were removed from Mercer-controlled warehouses. One had stolen wages. Another had used debt to force workers into unpaid labor. The third disappeared before Mara could question him. She found Silas in the kitchen that evening. "Where is Conway?" Silas poured coffee. "Gone. Dead." He looked at her. "Yes." Mara set the file on the counter. "You said you would tell me." "You asked." I answered. "That is not the same as warning me." Silas placed the cup down. "He threatened a witness." "I know. He tried to have you followed." Mara went still. "When yesterday, and you did not tell me. I handled it." Anger rose through her. Silas saw it. He did not defend himself again. After a long silence, he said, "I was wrong." The admission did not erase the mistake. It did something more useful. It opened the argument. They spoke until midnight. Mara demanded access to security reports concerning her. Silas resisted. She reminded him of the train ticket. He finally agreed. Trust did not arrive as a single dramatic promise. It was built through arguments that ended without punishment and mistakes that were named rather than hidden. Mara kept her room. She slept there whenever she wanted silence. Silas never asked why. Some nights she crossed the hallway to his bedroom. Other nights he remained outside her door with a folder and a cup of coffee just as he had during her first night in the penthouse. The difference was that he no longer sat there because she screamed. He sat there because she opened the door and asked him to stay. One evening, Mara found a locksmith working at the penthouse entrance. The old brass mechanism had been removed. Wires and metal pieces covered the floor. She looked at Silas. "What happened?" "I ordered a new access system." "Why?" He handed her a small card. 2 codes were written on it. "One for me," he said. "One for you." Mara read them. "Who has the master code? You do." She looked up. Silas stood several feet away, giving the locksmith space to work. "That seems unwise. It probably is." Eli agreed to this no. "Naomi." She laughed. Mara closed her fingers around the card. The new lock was connected to every residential door and elevator. Her code could open the penthouse from either side. It could also disable any security order that sealed her room. Silas had not removed danger from the building. He had placed the final decision in her hands. That night, rain returned to New Orleans. Mara stood barefoot beside the windows in one of Silas's shirts. Books lay open on the sofa. A half-finished glass of water rested on the table. The penthouse no longer looked prepared for evacuation. It looked lived in. Silas entered from the hallway. Mara saw his reflection before she heard him. He stopped several feet behind her. The habit had become instinct. "You can come closer," she said. Silas crossed the space. His arms settled around her waist. His hands rested over the place where her ribs had broken months earlier. Mara leaned back against his chest. Below them, lights moved along the river. A distant horn sounded near the docks. Silas lowered his head beside hers. "Still want the door unlocked?" "Yes." His arms tightened slightly. "Good." Mara turned her face toward him. "Why good?" Silas looked at their reflection in the rain-covered glass. "Because I want you here." His scarred hands remained open against her body. "I do not need you trapped." Mara placed her hands over his. The city stretched beyond the windows, dangerous and alive. The elevator waited behind them. The key card rested on the table. Every door could open. Mara stayed where she was,